Knights lived in luxurious tents called pavilions, which they had all of their furnishing, proper chairs and tables and tableware, real beds with fine linens, even wall hangings.
All this furniture had to be transported, and that's on top of what was needed for combat. Weapons and armor needed an army of artisans to maintain them.
The armorer's job on campaign was one of maintenance, constantly repairing, knocking out dents, simply changing straps, or replacing rivets that had broken. If you think of the knight as a race car driver, the armorer is his chief mechanic. Without him, he would not be able to function.
Also following an army was a band of opportunistic civilians, the camp followers, all vying to sell their services and goods to the soldiers. When on the march, most of the thousands of soldiers were mounted. Each knight would have at least 6 horses, all needing grooms, farriers, and fodder.
The royal household brought with them their clerks, their priests, essential for men who feared they might die in battle, and of course, their cooks.
The common soldier subsisted mainly on bread and a thick soup called pottage. It was an altogether different story for the knights.
A knight on campaign would expect the best food. So we have game, we have fine meats, we have fruit when it's in season, always cooked, because food is tied in with health as well. That's very important. And I'm just finishing off a dish here of spiced meatballs with a red wine and pine nut sauce.
French and English armies could be on campaign for months on end, maneuvering and skirmishing until they took to the field for a decisive battle. The French won an overwhelming victory at the Battle of Pontvalin. It was the first time the English had been utterly defeated during the war. But the triumph was short-lived. As England spent the next 60 years amassing French territory through alliances and victories at great battles, such as Agincourt. It seemed that nothing could stop England. Who then could have foreseen that a teenaged girl would... Jeanne d'Arc had liberated Orléans and put the English army to flight. However, as the English retreated, they became an obstacle for Charles the Dauphin. He needed a clear path from Chinon to Reims, where he would be crowned king. Nearing the town of Patay, the English sought to regroup. But Jeanne d'Arc and her French army were closing in. Fleeing the Loire Valley, the English were on the run. As they retreated northwards, a French vanguard was in close pursuit.
L'heure est de besoigner, si comme vos voldrez.
Caught out of position, the French faced a surprise attack from the English rearguard.
Compagnon. Je suis votre serveuse. Avertissez votre Pour votre service. Tous sommes prêts. Chevalier, Accessments pour Anderson, Chevalier. Thomas und Ordonnance.
A detachment of English archers blocked the road with palings, an effective measure against cavalry. The French vanguard had to clear the road if they were to call in reinforcements.
Je commande, avant. Pour votre service. Certes. Certes. Accessments for Soundways. Avant. Accessments for compagnon.
With the road cleared, the French army could safely bring in reinforcements from nearby allies. The French army paid their ally and received a detachment of reinforcements.
Attendez les commandements. Retrayez vos appuis.
Comme il vous plaise.
L'heure, si comme vos voldrez.
Hearing the rallying cry of the English coming from the village of St. Sigmund, the French were alerted to the enemy position. The French recaptured St. Sigmund and prepared to rendezvous with Jeanne d'Arc. But a large English detachment had set up a blockade. So long as that force was in place, the French vanguard could not reach Jeanne.
Compagnon. Avertissez votre courage, compagnon. Avertissez votre courage. Accessoire de je commande, avant.
The French army saw a chance to bolster their numbers and sent payment to their ally in return for reinforcements.
Incontinent. Si comme vos voldrez. Votre jetzt vos à moi. Incontinent. Sommes certes. Alarson, hors vostre service. Chevalier, avant, mes seigneurs. Attendez, je suis votre serveuse. Avant, compagnon. Incontinent. Soyez prêts, je suis votre serveuse. Votre jetzt vos à moi.
With the English blockade destroyed, the French vanguard rejoiced at the arrival of Jeanne d'Arc and her troops.
Si comme vos voldrez. Avertissez votre courage, compagnon.
With their rearguard eliminated, the remaining English forces would now seek to escape the valley through the town of Patay. 3 enemy regiments were converging on the town along 3 main roads. Jeanne had either to stop the regiments on the roads or race ahead to fortify Patay itself.
Compagnon, marchette derrière. Oyette si fait que te sera. Allons ce sens plus attendre.
Acces vos, compagnon. Ordre, je commande, avant.
Pex, veici les commandements.
Sommes on ordonnance.
Access vos.
Commandement incontinent, compagnon.
Chevalier, prest pour astier.
Fex, die Gefolgschaft sunt prests.
Attendez, l'heure est de besoigner.
Commandement! Voyez les commandements!
Certes.
Courez-vous, j'ai besoin.
Acces vos, compagnon.
Compagnon Alons, apparme. Oyez Sivey. Access vos.
Chascun envoyé vers notre porte, Jens Downs.
Ici les commandements. Access vos.
Die Jens Down vos giernt.
Oyette les commandements.
Ici les
Si pèse comme toi. Présence, bien ordonnée. Allons ce sens plus attendre. Compagnon, marchette derrière. À mon cri, avant. Compagnon, marchette derrière. À mon cri, avant. Si fait que te sera. Perfect, à l'arson. Allons ce sens plus attendre. Présence, bien ordonnée. Présence, bien ordonnée. Allons ce sens plus attendre. Je fais vos commandements.
Some English soldiers made it to Patay and began setting the town ablaze. The town would not hold out long without help. As the forces of the valiant Jeanne d'Arc entered the town, the people of Patay rallied to her cause.
Commandeur Compagnon, marchez derrière.
Oye, compagnon, nosotros. Za, compagnon, en attaque.
Compagnon, mettons nos en la bruit.
Pex, à mon prix, avant. À mon prix, avant. J'ai besoin.
After an intense pursuit and a hard-fought battle, the French crushed the remaining English army, thwarting their desperate retreat. Now the triumphant Jeanne d'Arc could safely lead Charles to Reims for his coronation as King of France. Medieval soldiers suffered brutal injuries in battle. Their chance of survival lay with barber surgeons. From cutting hair to removing limbs on the battlefield, the job of a barber surgeon was varied, and so were their tools.
600 years ago, surgery was very different from today, and this is some of the kit that the surgeons of then would be using. For example, amputations. This bit of kit was used to cut through the skin. Then you need to get through bone, and this is what they used. Believe it or not, this was used for neurosurgery. But what they didn't have at the time was anesthesia.
Despite carrying out major surgery, barber surgeons had no formal training.
What they learned on the job, and the place where they practiced the most was the battlefield.
This was also a time when new surgical techniques were developed, particularly when it came to saving the life of a future king. In 1403, 16-year-old Prince Henry was injured in the Battle of Shrewsbury while fighting rebels trying to overthrow his father, King Henry IV.
The arrow penetrated his right cheek and became lodged at the base of his skull. He was very lucky it didn't kill him instantly.
Prince Henry pulled the arrow from his face. The shaft came out, but the arrowhead remained lodged inside.
They needed to get that out before infection set in and killed him.
To the rescue, celebrated surgeon John Bradmore. Bradmore recorded what he did to save the prince's life, including a picture of the tool he made to extract the arrowhead.
And it works by ensuring that the tip is closed and then inserting it along the track caused by the arrowhead until it meets the arrowhead.
Then the screw is turned to expand the tip, locking it in place inside the arrowhead.
And then ever so slowly and gently, you extract, making sure that you don't lose it along the way. I'm amazed by the skill that would have been needed to do this successfully. Can you imagine how good that felt when that came out?
The young prince survived to become King Henry V, hero of Agincourt. But perhaps the real heroes of medieval medicine were the barber surgeons, who saved countless lives on the battlefield. The Battle of Patay was a disaster for the English. The French wiped out their bowmen and drove their forces from the Loire Valley. Now for Jeanne d'Arc and the Dauphin, the way to Reims was clear. The Maid of Orleans rode with the Dauphin through the streets and was at his side when he was finally crowned King Charles VII of France. But less than 2 years later, Jeanne was captured in battle, sold to the English, and put on trial for heresy. She spent 6 months locked in a dungeon, awaiting her fate. King Charles, who owed his crown to Jeanne, did nothing to help win her freedom. She was found guilty. On May 30th, 1431, Jeanne d'Arc was brought here, to the old market square in Rouen, where she was burned at the stake. She was 19 years old. But what the Maid of Orleans started could not be denied. Her victories were the first in a chain of successes for France's military. Liberty was within reach. Thanks to the leadership of two brothers, Jean and Gaspard Bureau, the French army became experts in the use of artillery, transforming it into a disciplined, modern fighting force. In 1448, King Charles was ready to make a major move against the English. He vowed to retake Normandy. King Charles VII's army would soon have access to the most advanced artillery in Europe, thanks to the master gunners, the Bureau brothers. While the brothers developed their weapons, the king laid plans for their use. He would bring Normandy back under French control. The first phase of the king's plan would give the Bureau brothers time to perfect their cannons. He tasked his army with claiming a base of operations. With the town under French control, the Bureau brothers now had the use of the university and of their own siege workshop. Their next goal was to learn all they could about recent innovations in the mixing of the most potent gunpowder. While the army waited for their new weapons, they kept a watchful eye for any English attacks on the town.
Arbelestre, a Chesmesvos.
Adertan seulement. Oh yes, tout le monde.
Compagnon, fais ici les commandements. Nos Spartans, Riemann.
En besoin.
Reste pour la besogne, Manance.
Si, les exploitiers.
Accordé. Oh, jetzt les ordonnances.
Fais ici, allons, ça permet. Genoi!
Vous me faites trahir.
Nos Spartans, Riemann.
Messieurs des mouets.
Que faut-il donc besoigner? Bien, bien. Raïs.
Encore besoin de la sauce.
Ouais, vestiaire de moi.
Honor reste obéi.
Toast y a la ouais. Il reste donc.
Que faut-il donc besoigner?
The brothers worked tirelessly to cast their gun barrels, but they still needed insight into the latest gunpowder chemistry.
J'attends ma besogne prochaine.
Trestos écoute les ordres.
Reste tout. Nous avons un port. Allez. Je prends cure de ce manoir. Suis pour vos édiers.
Je vous obéis.
Attendez pas de moi.
Qu'attendez-vous de moi?
Prêt pour faire les commandements.
Moins de reflets pour l'air.
Un commandement. Mon sang bouillonne.
Oyez tous. Voici les commandements. Un hostel à bâtir. Advertance. Voici les commandements.
Bien, c'est bien, bien.
Ce sera moule bien assouvi, verrez.
J'attends vos ordres.
Je ferai votre commandement.
Quel est votre plaisir?
Voyez tous. Voici les commandements. Ce sera moule bien assouvi, verrez.
Oui, ben.
Où voulez que j'aille?
J'attends vos advices.
Ma lance est prête. Donnez ton commandement. Les commandements viennent. C'est un honneur.
Prêt pour faire les commandements.
Ce sera pour moi honneur.
J'attends ma besogne prochaine.
Loin, JQ.
Aux arbalètes, je fais comme il vous plaît.
Ma lance est prête. Donnez ce commandement.
Point de repos
Où
pour
voulez
les
que
hardis.
j'aille?
J'attends les commandements et les batailles.
Advertance, voici les commandements.
Je vous obéis.
Je prends cure de ce manoir. J'attends ma besogne prochaine.
The Bureau brothers had successfully combined a powerful gunpowder recipe with sturdy cast iron gun barrels. At last, cannon production could begin. While the brothers turned out their cannons, culverins and reboldequins, the French army would bolster themselves for the coming fight.
Suis pour vos ailiers.
Nous allons avoir les commandes.
Posez-vous. Oyez.
Si le fait à toute tire, ainsi soit-il fait. Je ferai votre commandement.
Avez-vous commandement pour moi?
Advertence. Voici les commandements. Point de repos pour les hardis. Reste tous. Écoute les ordonnances. Je prends cure de ce manoir.
Je quitte votre advertance. Avant, ça, l'arrière-garde. Nous les mettrons juste. Sous pour la bataille. Nous attendons vos commandements. Sinon, moi, un autre.
With the mine under French control, the Bureau brothers had access to an abundance of iron for their gun barrels.
Oyez tous. Voici le petit fait, Jean continue. Bien, bien. Bien. Restos avec moi. Allons, sans atermoyer. Je m'attise d'Estromie.
Pour les hardis.
Prêt pour faire les commandements.
Attendez-vous de moi.
Ma lance est prête.
Oyez tous. Voici les commandements. Autant couperait comme il en faut. Un hostel à Bastille.
Advertence. Voici les commandements.
Avez-vous commandement pour moi?
Bien vous plaise l'achèvement?
Je ferai votre commandement.
Prêt pour rider.
Soudard, soyez prêts.
Oh, ainsi il souhaite. Votre commandement. Restum pour la bourrée, chevalier, pour la nord.
Nous attendons j'obéis à votre avis.
Les jongleurs diront ma victoire. Le champ nous attend. C'est un honneur. Ainsi soit-il fait.
Reste tous, écoute les ordonnances. Appareillement en train. Oyez tous, voici les commandements. Bien, je le vais faire. Point de repos pour les... Allons sans atermoyer. Oui. À la mine? Si, vais-je à Parma.
J'attends ma besogne prochaine.
J'attends vos advices. Reste tous, écoute les ordonnances. Vous t'en couperez comme il en faut.
Point de repos, mon frère.
J'attends ma besogne prochaine. Je pars pour...
Point de repos pour les
Prêt dans le... J'y besoigne à Parma. Si elle en jambon vers un mesme port. Quand que vous voudrez. Oyez bien, allons bien en ost.
Bien.
Pour vous servir, suis-je là?
Avez-vous commandement?
Oyez tous. Bien, reste tous avec moi. Bien, reste tous avec moi. À vos ordres, suis.
Le meilleur suit pour cette ouvrée.
Un hostel à Bastille.
Suis pour vos...
Soyez attentifs, soudain. Optimé. J'y vais. À Parma y vais-je.
Dictenos quelqu'un ten. Engin de siège en branle.
Ma lance est preste. Donnez ce commandement. Juste envoyé, chevalier. Sus à l'ennemi, mes seigneurs.
Arbalétrier, triez bas. Belle soudain. Mais ici, les commandements.
Nous attendons, chevalier, en ordre. Un commandement, on s'embouillonne.
Où dois-je...
J'aille, j'obtempère.
Les qui même aillent après moi.
Soudain, très bien. L'heure est d'aller en vrai. Je fais vos commandements. Marchons de rechief, gendarme.
Nos ordonnances sont là-dessus. Will, à part. C'est quasi assouvi.
At last, the French artillery weapons were ready for deployment. After years of preparation, the time had come for Charles VII to make his move. To take back Normandy, he would need to recapture the stronghold of Rouen, a critical fortress from which the English had been attacking Paris. Rouen walls would face an explosive trial against the mighty force of gunpowder.
Nos caresses, suivez le courroie, balétrier.
Advise pour... Sommes envoyés. Soudain, ainsi sera fait. Sécurez l'engin de siège. Envoyé.
Advertance, voici les commandements. Ce sera moult bien assouvi, verrez.
Reste tous, écoute les ordonnances.
Engin de siège actif. Envoyé, soudain. Suivez l'artillerie. C'est quasi assouvi. Suivez l'engin. Avant, allons. Ainsi sera fait. C'est quasi assouvi. Suivez l'engin, soudain. Nous accomplissons vos ordonnances. Envoyez, soudain. Suivez l'artillerie. Sécurez l'engin de siège. Envoyez. Ainsi soit-il. Suivez l'engin, soudain. Paix. Fais ici les commandements. Envoyez, soudain. Suivez l'artillerie. Suivez l'engin. Avant, allons. Envoyez, soudain. Suivez l'artillerie.
Baillez votre...
Advertance. Voici les commandements. Reste tous, écoute les ordonnances.
Maintenant, exploitons l'ouvrage.
Voyez tous, voici les commandements. Advertance. Voici les... Will, il est bien compris. Reste, votre plaisir est ordonnance. Voyez tous, voici les commandements. Nous attendons les commandements, maintenant. Maintenant, bref, on a besoin. Assignez-nous donc aucun besoin.
Nous avons sécuré l'engin de siège. Envoyé.
Maintenant, bien. Restons à votre...
Maintenant, oui, j'ai les bêtes compris. Maintenant, bref, on a besoin.
Assignez-nous donc aucune besogne.
Un hostel à Bastille. Je suis fier de mon œuvre.
Soudain, suivez l'engin. Avant, allons. Will, à part. Suivez l'engin, Souda. C'est quasi assuré.
With the skirmish won, trade could begin with the settlement.
Suivez l'engin, Souda.
Qu'attendez-vous de moi? Advertence! Voici les commandements.
13-12, écoute les ordonnances.
Reste tout.
Bien, bien, je le vais faire. Nous avons un port. Allez. Je prends cure de ce manoir. Écoute les ordonnances. Un hostel à Bastille.
L'ennemi nous court.
Ben, compagnons, si les commandements.
Nous avons les commandements reçus. Ainsi soit-il. Envoyez, Souda. Suivez l'artillerie.
Advertance! Voici les commandements.
Les trains de l'ennemi Space Monacois!
Nos ordonnances, sécurez l'engin de siège. Envoyez. Ainsi sera fait. Suivez l'engin. Avant, allons.
Voici les commandements. Reste tous, voyez tous. Voici les commandements.
Obéir.
Ainsi nous donc aucune besogne.
Vostre vouloir guidera mon air. La mort nos échaquettes.
Fais ici les commandements. Engin de siège, assis. Sécurez l'engin de siège. Envoyez. Suivez l'engin, Souda.
Très suis pour vos édiers. Ce sera poule bien assouvi, verrez.
les commandements. Suivez l'engin. Avant, allons. Envoyez, Souda. Suivez l'artillerie. Nous accomplissons vos ordonnances. Les engins de siège sont prêts. Bonne votre trait.
Enseigne l'ennemi à ne pas.
Soyez siège sont prêts. Entendez, suivez. Souda. Ainsi soit-il. Quel triomphe. Tout est ordonné. Ainsi sera fait.
Nous attendons vos commandements. Que s'il souhaite. Qu'ainsi il souhaite. Ennemis nos archives.
Tout est en suivez l'engin. Les engins de siège sont prêts. C'est une merveilleuse Souda.
After raising the river port, the French soldiers seized a stockpile of shipworthy timber, which could be used for superior cannon frames.
Sécurez l'engin de siège. Envoyez.
Tout suit à votre... Je m'inclinerai à votre plaisir.
Advertence, qu'attendez-vous de moi? Votre plaisir est ordonnant.
Quels sont eux? J'irai.
Avez-vous commandement pour moi? Je suis pour vous aider.
Oyez tous, voici les commandements.
Bon air, point de donne. Tout suit. Ainsi sera...
Qu'attendez-vous de moi? J'irai où vous voudrez.
Point de repos pour les hardis. J'attends... J'irai où vous voudrez.
Nous allons avoir les...
Nos ordonnances sont... Oui, là par main.
Les traits de l'ennemi envahissent mon avoie.
Je vois l'ennemi. Venez ça.
Ainsi soit fait. Fait. Suivez l'engin. Avant, arrangez le siège assis. Ribochet quasi assis. Advise pour votre engin. Dictenos, quelqu'un peine à battre. Les engins de siège sont prêts. Si fait. Dictenos, quelqu'un peine à battre. Dictenos, quelqu'un peine... Tout est ordonné.
Le chancy le fait à tout à
Souda, nous avons de sécurer l'engin de siège. Envoyez.
Ennemis nos archives.
Nos artilleries sont à ceux qui l'ennemi. Envoyez, Souda, suivez l'artillerie. Suivez l'engin, Souda. Ainsi soit-il. Suivez l'engin, Souda.
Nous sommes à pied de l'ennemi.
suivez l'artillerie. Suivez l'engin. Avant, allons. Sécurez l'engin de siège. Envoyez. Advise pour vos engins de siège, ça faut aller. Bien. Nos ordres, suivez l'engin, soudain.
L'ennemi nous affine!
Suivez l'engin, soudain. Suivez l'engin. Avant, allons. Sécurez l'engin de siège. Envoyez. Suivez l'engin. Avant. Allons.
The French army bore down on the formidable walls of Rouen, ready to launch their final assault on this key English stronghold. Rouen's walls were breached. The French army had at last exposed the heart of the fortress. Having lost the walls of Rouen, the English made a last stand to hold the city. The French would need to destroy the buildings that had housed the English army and drive out the enemy for good. A party of English soldiers approached the French base, intent on reclaiming the town. the English scattered and their buildings in ashes, the French had recaptured the critical fortress of Rouen. Charles VII had proven that France was no longer the underdog in the 100 Years' War. After decades of bloody dispute, Normandy was finally back in French hands. During the 14th century, the face of war in Europe changed forever. Thanks to a substance invented by the Chinese while searching for the elixir of life. Gunpowder. One of the first guns used on the battlefields of Europe was this, the bombard.
This is a large stone-throwing gun for moving big projectiles like this up and over and through castle walls.
Before the invention of the cannon, castle wall-busting projectiles had been thrown by trebuchets.
This is what took over from the trebuchet. Far easier to move from castle to castle.
Its design was simplicity itself, drawing on the skills of the barrel maker.
This has metal staves, lengthways, and then lots of hoops holding those staves under compression. So this is why we now call this the gun barrel as well.
The bombard was no more powerful than a trebuchet, but it did have a psychological impact on the enemy.
If we take it back several hundred years, and the loudest thing is a cockerel crowing or a brawl in the pub on a Saturday night, these things are horrendously frightening.
As metallurgy improved, barrels could be made longer, increasing accuracy and power. They progressed from taking down walls to taking out soldiers, replacing the bow and arrow.
A typical arrow would get stuck in this sort of material, where ball just goes straight through. So compared to a bow and arrow, this is far more deadly.
During the 100 Years' War, there was even a precursor to the machine gun, the Ribauldequin.
She's got several barrels on her. This is the sort of gun that would have been very much against people being able to spread your shot out and hit large numbers of people in one go.
Gunpowder revolutionized warfare throughout the 100 Years' War, changing the way battles were fought forever.